going to tell us about the solderboard license.
So it's the Solderpad open hardware license.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, so the story behind this was I've been involved quite heavily in open hardware, and I wrote an article, I think it was in 2012, which was examining whether a copyleft license was appropriate for open hardware or not. And there's a lot of reasons why I think it's difficult to make copyleft work in open hardware. A number of people that I knew had been trying to use academic licenses, permissive licenses, particularly MIT and BSD. There really hadn't been that many people trying to use the Apache license, so as a little exercise I thought it might be a good idea to take the Apache license and see if I could hack it around and make it more friendly for use with hardware. And having a look at the license, it occurred to me it was actually a really straightforward thing to do. All I had to do was to look at some of the terminology in there, so reference to object code and source code. Source code being things like designs for hardware rather than just pure computer software. And also some of the things that you can do when you're creating an object is obviously you can make it as opposed to turning it into object code. So by tweaking some of the terminology, I created what I call the Solderpad open hardware license. The reason I called it Solderpad is because a very good friend of mine, Andrew Back, who does a lot of work in electronics, had set up a website which was called Solderpad, and the idea was that this was supposed to be a repository of open hardware designs. So I had a word with him and I said, do you mind if I use this license? I didn't want to call it the Apache Open Hardware License because I didn't have the part of the Apache Software Foundation, although I spoke to various board members about it. So over the years, it's been adopted by a number of projects. One of them is the BBC Microbit. Their reference design is licensed under the Solderpad license. And I'm working with a company called River Simple at the moment, and they produce a hydrogen fuel cell powered car, and they're in the process of open sourcing a lot of their designs, and they felt that the Solderpad open hardware license was appropriate for those designs. So where we're going with it, we've just produced another version, which is rather than hacking around the Apache license itself to make it easier for lawyers to understand, rather than having to analyze the license and see where the changes are, we've now created a wraparound license. So it has effectively exactly the same effect as Apache 2.0, which has been modified with various references to hardware. But what it does now, it's a very short license that just incorporates Apache 2.0 and says, but with the following changes, and it makes a few small changes to the definitions and also to the operative rights. And to make it easier for people who are familiar with Apache 2.0 to see how it works, it also has an option that it falls back to Apache 2.0 if you don't want to take advantage of any of the changes. If anyone's interested in having a look at it, if they want to just Google Solderpad Open Hardware License, it's referenced on the Open Source Hardware Association webpage as one of their licenses. And I'm always very happy to hear any suggestions that people may have as to how we might be able to improve it.
Thank you very much for that overview.
Right, my pleasure. Thank you.